David and Mark are both senior software engineers. Same job title, same pay, $220,000 a year for 25 years straight. Same habit, both save 15% of every paycheck without fail. Same houses, same neighborhoods, same bills. By 60, they had saved the exact same amount, $3.2 million. Same everything. But by 73, something broke apart. David's money kept growing, untouched. Mark had to hand an extra $836,000 straight to the IRS. Same income, same bills, same discipline, $836,000 apart. And it happened because of one hidden flaw nobody ever warned them about. Here's the thing. If you've been maxing out your 401k, a retirement account where your paycheck goes in before taxes are taken out for the last 10, 15, 20 years, you've probably been told you're doing everything right. High earner, disciplined, following the playbook. But here's what I'm going to prove. Piling all your savings into that pay taxes later account with no real plan for later quietly build a tax bill that can eat your retirement alive. The advice you've been given treats your account balance like a scoreboard. It ignores a simple question. Who actually owns those dollars? You or the government. And here's why nobody talks about this. Banks and payroll companies make more money the bigger your account grows. So a big number is good for them, whether or not it's good for you. Not a conspiracy. Just money doing what money does. To see exactly how Mark lost $836,000, we need to expose the lies sitting underneath almost all mainstream retirement advice. David and Mark are both senior software engineers. Same job title, same pay, $220,000 a year for 25 years straight. Same habit. Both save 15% of every paycheck without fail. Same houses, same neighborhoods, same bills. By 60, they had saved the exact same amount, $3.2 million. Same everything. But by 73, something broke apart. David's money kept growing, untouched. Mark had to hand an extra $836,000 straight to the IRS. Same income, same bills, same discipline, $836,000 apart. And it happened because of one hidden flaw nobody ever warned them about. Here's the thing. If you've been maxing out your 401k, a retirement account where your paycheck goes in before taxes are taken out for the last 10, 15, 20 years, you've probably been told you're doing everything right. High earner, disciplined, following the playbook. But here's what I'm going to prove. Piling all your savings into that pay taxes later account with no real plan for later quietly build a tax bill that can eat your retirement alive. The advice you've been given treats your account balance like a scoreboard. It ignores a simple question. Who actually owns those dollars? You or the government. And here's why nobody talks about this. Banks and payroll companies make more money the bigger your account grows. So a big number is good for them, whether or not it's good for you. Not a conspiracy. Just money doing what money does. To see exactly how Mark lost $836,000, we need to expose the lies sitting underneath almost all mainstream retirement advice. The whole plan rests on one bet, that you'll land in a lower tax bracket once you retire. 3 things say that bet is wrong. First, at age 73, the government stops letting you choose. It forces you to pull money out of your account, whether you need it or not. This is called a required minimum distribution, kind of like a landlord who shows up every year and makes you pay rent on money you already own. On a $3.5 million balance, that very first forced withdrawal can run around $142,000 in a single year. And that number doesn't show up alone. It stacks right on top of everything else coming in: Social Security, a pension, dividends, maybe rental income. Add it all up, and suddenly your retirement income is $220,000 a year or more. That's the exact same tax bracket you spent your whole career trying to escape. Then there's the third piece. Tax rates today are low by historical standards. Not average, low. And with the size of the debt the federal government carries right now, there's no promise those rates stay this low forever. Put those three pieces together, and here's the sentence that should stop you cold. A large share of high-income retirees end up paying the same tax rate, or even a higher one than they paid during their best working years. Let that sink in for a second. How does someone who did everything right, someone disciplined enough to max out their account for 20 straight years, end up paying more in retirement than at the peak of their career? Because the standard plan never accounts for what happens when forced withdrawals, Medicare cost increases, and rising tax brackets all hit at the same time in the same year. You spent decades building a giant vault, locked with a pay-later promise. Nobody ever told you the government sets the price at the door on the way out, and they set it whenever they want. So if the model is broken, and the numbers prove it, who exactly benefits from everyone believing it anyway? So why does almost every HR portal, every default enrollment form, and half the finance influencers online push you to just max out that pre-tax account without a second thought? Follow the money. Companies that manage your 401k charge a fee based on how big your total pile of money is. That's called assets under management, which just means the total amount they're in charge of watching over. Say you have a $3 million pre-tax account. They collect a fee on the full $3 million. Now, imagine you move some of that into a leaner setup, one built for taxes instead of just size. That fee shrinks. So, of course, they want your number as big as possible for as long as possible. That's not you being paranoid. That's just math. Payroll companies have their own reason too. Setting every single employee up the same way, all funneled into the same pre-tax option, is easy, cheap, simple to run at a massive scale. Building something custom for each person is expensive and slow, and nobody's paying them to do that. So none of this is some secret plot in a back room somewhere. It's not a conspiracy. It's just incentives doing what incentives always do. The whole system is built to make your gross number look as big as possible, not to protect the actual amount of money you get to keep and spend. And that one gap between a big number on paper and real spendable cash in your pocket is exactly where David and Mark's paths split apart. So what did David actually do differently, starting from the exact same paycheck as Mark? Let's break down the two of them side by side. Same starting point for both of them. Age 35, $220,000 salary. Both saving 15% of it every single year, which comes out to $33,000. Both getting a 7% return on average for 25 straight years. Both hit age 60 with the exact same pile of money, $3,200,000. Mark went with the default plan. Every dollar, 100%, into a traditional pre-tax 401k. The same setup everyone gets handed on their very first day at work. David did something different. He put in enough to get his full match, then maxed out something called a backdoor Roth IRA, a way of getting money into an account that grows tax-free, even for people who earn too much to normally qualify. Everything left over, he put into a regular taxable brokerage account. 3 different buckets from day one, instead of just one giant bucket. Now here's the part that matters. Both of them need $120,000 a year in retirement to live the same life. Look at Mark's math. To actually have $120,000 in his pocket after tax, he has to pull out $158,000 from his account. That means he's losing about $38,000 a year every single year just to taxes. Now look at David's math. Same target, same $120,000 lifestyle. He pulls $40,000 from his tax-free Roth account. He pulls $50,000 from his brokerage account, taxed at a much lower capital gains rate, somewhere between 0 and 15%. And he pulls $30,000 from his pre-tax account, low enough to stay in the cheapest tax brackets. Total withdrawal needed? Just $124,000. His tax bill for the year? About $4,000. Same lifestyle. Same $120,000 in spending money. David pays $4,000 in tax to get there. Mark pays $38,000 every year for the rest of his life. Now push forward to age 75. Mark's account forces him to pull out huge amounts of money, whether he wants to or not, pushing his taxable income past $200,000. That triggers higher Medicare costs, and his premiums double. David avoids all of that because he's been quietly moving small amounts of money into his Roth account during his low-income years, between 60 and 75. He's the one setting his own number year by year. 15 years into retirement, Mark has paid $836,000 more in taxes and Medicare costs than David. Same starting balance. Same lifestyle. 2 completely different outcomes. So what was David actually doing differently underneath all of this? That's the one idea this entire video is built around, and it's coming up right now. If you only remember one thing from this whole video, remember this. Wealth isn't the big number sitting in your pre-tax account. Wealth is how much control you have over when the government gets paid and how much they take when they do. Think about it this way. Money split across 3 different buckets. 1 pre-tax, 1 Roth, 1 a regular brokerage account. Works like 3 different keys to the same lock. Each one opens a different door at a different cost. If everything you own sits in 1 pre-tax bucket, you don't have 3 keys. You have 1 key, and someone else decides when you're allowed to use it. That's not a flexible retirement. That's just a pile of assets, waiting for someone else to set the price. Real security doesn't come from having the biggest pile. It comes from something called tax location diversity, which just means spreading your money across accounts that get taxed in different ways, so you can turn your taxable income up or down depending on what that specific year looks like. Some years, tax rates might be low. Some years, they might climb. If your money is spread out the right way, you get to choose how much income shows up on paper each year, instead of the government choosing it for you. That flexibility is exactly what protects you from a future nobody can actually predict. Nobody knows what tax rates will look like in 20 or 30 years. Nobody knows what your income will need to look like either. But if you build in options now, you get to react later instead of just accepting whatever bill shows up. So let's stop talking in ideas for a second and make this real with actual numbers from start to finish. Meet Sarah. She's 62 years old, already retired, sitting on $3 million in a traditional pre-tax account. No paycheck coming in anymore. Social Security won't start until she turns 70, and when it does, it'll pay her $40,000 a year. Sarah has two paths in front of her. Path 1, do nothing and let the government force her hand later. Path 2, use the years before that happens to make a smart move. Let's walk through Path 1 first. Sarah waits until age 75 and doesn't touch a thing. Her account grows at a modest 5% a year, and by 75, it's worth $5,698,000. At that age, the government forces her to start pulling money out based on something called a required minimum distribution. Her required withdrawal that first year comes out to $231,626. Add her $40,000 from Social Security, and her total taxable income for that single year is $271,626. As a single filer, that pushes her into the 32% federal tax bracket, plus state tax on top, plus higher Medicare costs called surcharges, which kick in once your income crosses certain lines. Now here's Path 2. Starting at 62, before any of those forced withdrawals kick in, Sarah moves money out of her pre-tax account and into a Roth account on purpose, a little at a time, every single year. She fills up just to the top of the 22% tax bracket each year, which comes out to roughly $100,000 moved per year for 12 years straight. That's $1,200,000 total, shifted into an account that grows completely tax-free from that point forward. By the time she hits 75, her pre-tax account is much smaller, so her forced withdrawal drops to around $80,000. Add her $40,000 from Social Security, and her total taxable income that year is just $120,000, comfortably inside the 22% bracket with no extra Medicare surcharges at all. Add up her entire lifetime of taxes under both paths. Path 1 costs her about $1,420,000. Path 2 costs her about $710,000. That's $710,000 saved permanently from one decision made years ahead of time, using money she already had sitting right there. That's the one big lever. Now let's look at the smaller ones that stack right on top of it. Let's move fast through 5 smaller rules that stack right on top of everything we just covered. Rule 1, always get your match first. It doesn't matter if it's pre-tax or Roth. Walking away from free money from your employer just to chase some clever tax strategy means giving up a guaranteed return before you've even started optimizing anything else. Rule 2, the years between retirement and age 73 are pure gold. That stretch of time is the only window where you fully control your own taxable income before the government forces your hand. Use those years for Roth conversions. Rule 3, Medicare is watching your tax return from 2 years back. Your premiums at age 65 get set based on what your tax return looked like at age 63. If you plan a big conversion without keeping that in mind, you can trigger extra costs you never saw coming. Rule 4, try to fill up something called the 0% capital gains bracket. If you manage your taxable income carefully in early retirement, a married couple filing taxes together can actually cash out long-term investment gains at a 0% federal tax rate, up to a real dollar limit. Rule 5, watch out for what's called the widow's penalty. When one spouse passes away, the one left behind often has to file taxes as a single person the very next year. Same household income as before, but suddenly a much worse tax bracket, and the entire pre-tax account now sits on just one person's shoulders. Doing conversions while both spouses are still alive softens that blow a lot. 5 rules, all pointing at the same idea. None of them ask you to save less money. They just ask you to decide when you pay taxes instead of letting some government formula decide it for you years down the road. So what do you actually do with all of this starting today? Here are 3 things to do this week. First, calculate your tax location ratio. Look at your total savings and see how it's spread across your pre-tax account, your Roth account, and any regular brokerage account you own. If more than 70% of your money sits in that pre-tax bucket, pause any extra contributions beyond your employer match and start sending new savings toward Roth or brokerage accounts instead. Second, project your own future required withdrawal. Take your current pre-tax balance, grow it at a conservative 6% a year until age 75, then divide that number by 24.6. If the result pushes you into a higher tax bracket than the one you're in right now, you need a conversion plan. Not someday. Now. Third, map out your gap years. Build a year-by-year plan covering the window between your retirement date and age 73 and figure out exactly how much money you can convert each year without spilling into a higher bracket. Think back to David and Mark. Same income, same bills, same career start to finish. The only real difference between them is that David understood something Mark never did. Managing your tax rate matters more than chasing the biggest number you can see on a statement. You either control your tax buckets today, or the government controls them for you later. There's no third option. If this video changed how you think about your 401k, hit subscribe and drop your current pre-tax to Roth ratio down in the comments. I actually read every one.